So, in fact, if we look at things from Israeli perspective, what, in fact, do you think makes this visit truly transformative is the big question. And that's something that we are going to be taking up. We are joined by, in fact, Daniel Karmun, who's a former Israel ambassador to India. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. And this is the Israeli perspective that we do want to discuss, and the kind of camaraderie the both leaders, in fact, have been showing at a global stage is one thing. The kind of reception that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is looking at is the other. But strategically, how significant is this for Israel, this visit by the Indian Prime Minister?
Well, I have to say it's an extremely important visit. We have a great friend as Prime Minister of India, and a great friendly nation of India that comes to visit Israel. We feel it's a very, very important visit, but I would like to be a little cautious in calling it a historic visit, because the historic visit happened 10 years ago. Now we are on very stable grounds together as strategic partners, and as such, we should be looking at the present and the future, and talk less with big declarations about history being made, because it was already made, as I said before, 10 years ago.
Well, absolutely. Also, Daniel, India has in fact, long balanced its ties between Israel and the broader Middle East. So does Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit really signal a shift from caution to confidence in this particular equation? What's your feeling as far as that is concerned?
I think we have built confidence during those almost 40 years of relations, and maybe even before. The confidence was there. What wasn't there was a decision, a political decision, I would say, of policy, which took into consideration different aspects. In 2014, there was a big change, a dramatic change, in which the relations that we did have starting somewhere in the 90s in defense and agriculture, we had those relations under very low radar vision and visibility. This has changed dramatically in 2014. It allowed to publicly and visibly talk about the relations. We proudly did so. The Indian side did so also. And this policy of dehyphenation, as we call it, allowed India to continue being engaged with the Palestinian issue as India saw it, and build wonderful relations with Israel, very beneficial relations in so many fields. So the confidence was there. We built it. We are on very stable grounds now. And this visit, this very important visit, makes truly a sign of those great relations.
All right, Ambassador Karmun, do stay on with us. We also have Sanjay continues to be with us from Tel Aviv. Sanjay, defense cooperation, and this has been a cornerstone, whether it's about India-Israel ties. What are the big expectations on this front now that the PM is going to be in Israel shortly?
Well, the way the defense environment has developed post-Ukraine, we are going to be talking missiles, and drones. That's the name of the game now. Tanks suddenly seem like history. So this is where the focus will be, and this is not just a question of intended focus. We've seen that already. We've had an $8.7 billion deal between India and Israel, and that has been mostly missiles. We've been looking at the Spice 1000. We've been looking at Rampage. There is some consideration whether Israel will also supply India with the Golden Horizon missile system, which is a very sophisticated long-range air-to-air missile system. So these are some of the names that we are seeing around. But beyond that, the intention really is to go beyond thinking of India as a market for Israeli or even just as an assembly point for them, but towards joint innovation, engineering and production. So that is where this future lies, and that is where the intention is, not just to go in that direction, but to scale up cooperation on that hugely.
Right, absolutely. And also the alliance that one is talking about, the Israeli Prime Minister, Mr. Netanyahu, is talking about the axis of alliance, and that's something which will have India as a significant partner. More on that as well, Sanjay.
Well, more on that is a little difficult because by way of more on that, we actually do have more questions than answers. It's not very clear what this hexagonal alliance will be. Prime Minister Netanyahu has spoken of the Shiite radicalism and of Sunni radicalism. He has said that Shiite radicalism has been addressed. Now Sunni radicalism must be addressed. Now, where India fits into all this internationally is far from clear at the moment. There is an attempt to also bring in several other nations from the Arab world and also from the Mediterranean region, but that is a space we'll have to watch and see how that unfolds.
So, all the more reasons to ask, why does Israel feel that's crucial for India to be a part of it?
Well, for Israel, India is a natural partner. Consider also, while we speak in quite rosy language about India and Israel, and quite justifiably too, Israel is in a state of relative isolation around the world. There are not a lot of countries that are prepared to deal with Israel on political issues, diplomatic issues, certainly strategic and defense issues. India is a partner politically. Also, India is a huge market. India is a very major weapons importer, and this is something that Israel can sell to India. So there is a great deal of commercial opportunity for Israel here with India, and the Prime Minister of Israel can hardly be unmindful of that. So that is a primary interest. So that business opportunity that blends with a political uniformity across many fronts is really the bedrock and the founding pillar of this relationship.
Right, absolutely. Sanjay, do stay on with us. We also have Zakka Jacob joining us live from the CNN News 18 newsroom. Zakka, your assessment on this hexagonal alliance that Sanjay was in fact throwing light on. What do you think? Is India being drawn into a new regional alliance? And if that's the case, how important is this one?
Look, the Hexagon alliance is something that Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel referred to a few days ago, where he wants to bring in regional powers in the Middle East, which includes Israel, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, along with India and the United States, into some kind of a semi-formal alliance. Now, the problem is that, look, India has never been part of any military or security-driven alliance. India is part of the Quad, but that's an informal alliance. India has time and time again said that India does not view the Quad from a military prism. This Hexagon alliance that he's talking about already has. There is an I2U2, which is India, Israel, the UAE and United States. This informal grouping, again, I think has met at the ministerial level a few times. What Mr. Netanyahu wants to do is to underwrite a sort of security architecture all the way from North Africa through the Middle East, all the way up to India, in a way that these 6 countries come together and act as a bulwark against what he calls Islamic radicalism and Islamic extremism. Now, of course, India and Israel have a common problem when it comes to the scourge of terrorism. If you remember, after October 7, 2023, when the Hamas attack happened, Prime Minister Modi was one of the first world leaders to not just condemn unequivocally what it was, which was Islamic terrorism. The same was reciprocated when Pahalgam happened. Prime Minister Netanyahu was one of the first ones to call Prime Minister Modi in the aftermath of Pahalgam. So India and Israel have had a very, very strong convergence when it comes to fighting terror. They have taken a similar position. In fact, so much so even the Prime Minister of Israel has said for a number of occasions now that the world needs to adopt a common definition for terrorism under the Comprehensive Terrorism Action Plan, something, again, the UN has failed to do. I think this visit is important, bilaterally, obviously, because this is the only second time that an Indian Prime Minister is visiting Israel. In fact, the first time was when Prime Minister Modi went in 2017. So it kind of cements the India-Israel partnership. At the same time, there's also a regional context. I mean, all of this clouds of war looming over the region. Will America and Israel attack Iran? There's that big meeting coming up in Geneva tomorrow afternoon, right after the Prime Minister leaves. And if in that meeting, the Iranians are not able to produce something concrete by way of showing to the Americans that, look, we are moving towards zero enrichment, or we are going to commit to zero enrichment of uranium, then I suspect, because the rhetoric has been ratcheted up so much, because of such huge amount of military firepower being moved to the Mediterranean and to the Gulf, the Americans and particularly President Trump will be left with no option but to militarily strike, unless the Iranians give him something that he can show both to his domestic audience and internationally that he extracted this deal out of the Iranians. So I think for the next 2 days, fingers will be crossed. And obviously, the Prime Minister, when he's there, will also have one-on-one conversations with Prime Minister Netanyahu. He's also meeting the Israeli president tomorrow, Isaac Herzog. And he will also try to gauge a sense of, what is the plan here as far as the American-Israeli attack plan is to try and force nuclear concessions out of Iran. What is the kind of exigencies that they're planning for in case Iran retaliates, and Iran will certainly retaliate like they did when the 12-day war happened. So all of these will be topics of conversation. So both at the bilateral level and at the multilateral level, this is a hugely significant visit.